All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Buffalo Sports Insider, bringing you everything sports, everything Buffalo. I'm KJ Zielezinski. Joining me is Justin Siejak, Hunter Lobur Cummins, Colton Pankewicz. Thank you again for joining us. But before we begin, since this is our first episode, let me tell you a little bit about who we are. This educational program is brought to you by Buffalo State University and Canisius University. I know it's crazy to say Canisius University. Congratulations to them. And with help from the Buffalo Broadcasters Association. We're a group of budding media professionals using our skills in media production and journalism, working hard to bring authentic and relevant content to you through our weekly podcast, social media, and articles found on our website at buffalosportsinsider.com. Good Lord. This program is going to be a great way for us to learn more about the media industry and express our passion for sports in Western New York. So that's enough for me. Without further ado, right from you guys now, talk to me about this, the Buffalo Bills 2022-2023 season.
Yeah, it was a good one. I don't know if it was great necessarily. There were certainly some high expectations labeled on the Bills coming into the season, a lot of Super Bowl predictions. You know, that's a tough thing to live up to, but they were expected to be at that point, and they did fall short against the Bengals, just kind of out-muscled and out-powered. What do you guys think about that game?
You know, I think a wild ride is a fair way to describe it.
Yeah.
You go from a great start, the weather, of course, in Miami. You fast forward a little bit, the unfortunate slip-up versus the Jets. Maybe Josh's elbow gets a little affected there, UCL.
Yeah.
The insane game of the year candidate versus Minnesota.
Yeah.
And then you finish strong, but then, of course, we know what happens in the playoffs.
I think you go beyond that, and in the original regular season Bengals game, it almost kind of translated from what you saw in that short bit to what you saw the entire playoff game. The Bills couldn't stop the Bengals offensively, and it almost felt like the longest 5 quarters of your life. If you were to tie those together, and the Bills had no answers offensively. Josh ran for his life and couldn't get anything flowing offensively, and defensively they had no answer for Joe Burrow.
And so much hype leading, I don't want to say hype, but I mean expectations leading up to that game too, since everything had happened with the no contest and Damar Hamlin, the game being postponed, and then they meet again in the playoffs, and it's just like, all right, this is like the big game we've been waiting for. So an upsetting loss for sure, and I think especially contrasting the Kansas City game the year before that and how crazy that was. People thought it was going to be the same story with the Bengals, and I felt like it was a little left a lot to be desired.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they fell flat. That's the perfect way to put it. They did fall flat against the Bengals offensively and defensively. Like I said, just kind of unmuscled. It starts in the trenches. We all know with football, the offensive line did leave Josh hanging. Very sad. However, as we're going to talk about here, they did make some efforts into trying to improve these facets of the game.
Yeah.
I think the weather definitely was a perfect representation of how that day went, just glum.
Right. No, you're totally right. So now looking forward, right, we went onto the draft, picked up some rookies, most notably Dalton Kincaid, we look on the next Travis Kelce, and he's there. I mean, you also have Justin Shorter, who Randy Moss was talking about him being next generational talent, and we picked up a stud. And I mean, you also have Osiris Torrance, a people moving machine. So talk to me about these rookies, also the sophomores, newcomers. Who do we got looking fresh for this new team?
Yeah, well, as far as this rookie class, I think you can expect a heavy load from the first rounder, Dalton Kincaid. We're talking about a guy who played 4 years at Utah, kind of, was a rotational guy those first 3 years. That fourth year, though, he really popped. It was a dominant performance, including a game against USC where he had 16 receptions for 234 yards. I mean, that's unheard of. I think I saw a stat on Twitter that said, there wasn't a tight end in the entire college season that went over 140, and Kincaid mustered 100 more than that. So that kind of puts it into perspective. What do you guys think about Kincaid's role coming into the offense this year?
I'm really impressed with what I've been seeing. I feel like he's been the star of the camp so far. And, you hear a lot of comparisons, not size-wise, but positional-wise. Does he fit in to where Cole Beasley came from? The slot, a bigger slot receiver. No, he is technically a tight end, but kind of where does that fusion wide receiver tight end hybrid play?
Yeah, I love that they're kind of just swaying away from that ideologically speaking, at the tight end position. Travis Kelce was the first one we saw to really kind of break out. It's like, we have to label him as a tight end, but he's not. And that's the same thing that I see with Kincaid. And that's the same thing Brandon Bean said.
Mhm.
Dawson Knox will be on the field, but so will Kincaid. Whether it's outside or inside as a slot, they're going to find time for both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where a lot of Bills fans were confused early on. Why did we take a tight end in the first round? People shouldn't really be thinking of him as a tight end. He's more of a weapon. He's a weapon. And the way the NFL is running nowadays, the league is heading towards a positionless football kind of thing, which you'll see on offense and defense. So when a tight end comes in like Dalton Kincaid, it doesn't necessarily have to be in line as a traditional wide tight end. That's going to be Dawson Knox. We did pay him that $72 million contract. He's going to be on the field. But you find a way to put Kincaid on the field because this guy, he gets open and he catches. You might have some of the best hands I've seen from a tight end recently.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Kincaid, definitely the star of training camp so far. I've seen a lot of great things coming from him. And now also kind of talking about these second-year players, we gotta talk about this cornerback position, right? Because, I mean, Tre'Davious White coming back off of an ACL injury. He came back kind of midway through the season. He's clear CB1 right now. But other than that, you also have Kyer Long and Chris Benford. Who am I leaving out?
Dane Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Dane Jackson. And I mean, all these players. So, right, we're kind of shifting into the position battles here. Like, what are we looking for in a CB2 role? Who's kind of leading that charge right now?
Yeah, I think the early front runners, it's kind of weird because the Bills' official depth chart, the first one of the season, did release today. A weird thing they did was they listed Elam, Benford, and Dane Jackson all as CB2. So that'll be interesting to see kind of play out in the preseason. You got to keep an eye on those guys. But obviously from the second-year players, Elam and Benford, you want to see those guys take another step. Benford's kind of funny. He 6th-round pick out of Villanova. However, he kind of popped recently when he played last year. Kind of a ball hawk. He finds the ball often, and if Elam doesn't capitalize on his position, that could be his spot for the taking. You can't count out Dane Jackson either. But both guys have potential, and it'll be fun to watch in the preseason.
It's a little, I don't want to say worrisome just yet, but you wonder, is Elam experiencing a sophomore slump in camp at least? I know we'll have some more evidence if he sees the field come Saturday versus Indianapolis. But right now it does seem like Dane Jackson might be in line to take that too. But, of course, more camp and, of course, the preseason itself to figure that stuff out.
Yeah, I find it pretty interesting how different each of them are.
Right.
And how they've been described. I know Benford is just like they described him as a high IQ, smart football player. Elam is your zone guy. He's always looking to.
Well, he's a man press. He played primarily man press in Florida.
Yeah.
And to come in kind of to that Bills zone coverage is maybe why he's not flourishing as much as we'd like to see him right away. It's a different look for Kyer Elam, who dominated in that man press coverage zone in Florida. So that'll be something to interesting. Can he really learn that zone coverage that the Bills love to run, or can they run some hybrid looks?
Exactly. And then you got Dane Jackson, who kind of fits the bill as someone who doesn't play as well in the man coverage. And that's more their zone conservative guy who's not going to necessarily get beat deep, but he's also not going to try to jump or be more aggressive, which fits the bill for a Leslie Frazier defense. But now Sean McDermott has the sticks, and that's where it really, gets tricky. That's where I think Elam becomes that number one.
Right.
I don't, they have tended to play their sophomores a crazy amount compared to year one. And I think with a Sean McDermott defense, this is like the sophomore is Elam, and what can he do aggressively and, playing under all the best of the best in the AFC.
Yeah. So interesting to think about. And I mean, even topic of position battles too, with McDermott's defense and the depth chart coming out today, middle linebacker position, right? I mean, Tremaine Edmonds leaving this huge hole from, going to Chicago, ton of money, good for him. I mean, I love Maine, so fine with him doing that. But now, like I said, you got Tyrell Dodson and Terrell Bernard both being listed as middle linebacker 1, and I mean, kind of on the edges, Bale Inspector. So, I mean, what's that kind of looking for in this new defense?
Yeah, well, we talked about the sophomores. You got Terrell Bernard, who got drafted relatively early, 3rd round out of Baylor last year. So obviously there are some expectations that follow Bernard's name. Tyrell Dodson, who's been in the system for a while, he's kind of learned that McDermott defense for a while. So obviously those two are at the forefront. You do have Bale Inspector, but he's mostly been taking middle linebacker snaps with the 2nd and 3rd team. And then kind of going back to the rookies, Dorian Williams, not really in the race right now. He's got to learn the system. Yeah. The big thing with him was he always had the physical tools, but the processing was slow. So there will be a learning curve there for Dorian Williams. So we're kind of looking at Bernard and Dotson. I remember in the preseason last year, actually against the Colts, Bernard had that fumble return for a touchdown. that was a strip sack. That was a cool play. We need to see more out of that, out of those guys. So what do you guys think about that position?
You know, I think it's important for people to realize, kind of going back to what you saw right away from the draft, like maybe many were confused with the Kincaid pick. I think it's also important to realize that while Dorian Williams could mold into what Edmonds was, he's not going to slot in there right away, and that's not going to be off to the races. So have some patience. I think it's just important for people to realize that there's not immediate replacements that you see. Well, they could be it. We got to give it some time here.
Yeah, I think Dotson kind of comes into week one as the starter. I know they're leaving it up for grabs right now. I just feel like the culture of the Buffalo Bills has been to kind of put players in a spot to limit mistakes.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they would put, Bernard in there week one as a guy who's coming in as a sophomore. And I just don't see that fitting the culture. I feel as if they're going to put up to Dotson and kind of just, you're going to have the mic and you're going to try to limit as many like newcomer mistakes as you can.
Yeah. No, really. I mean, again, like these two positions are the biggest thing. And obviously people are talking about, I don't know, would you call it a position battle for tight end? Because it's like, I mean, Kincaid and Knox, I think, are very different.
1A and 1B.
Exactly. That's
Fair
what
way
I'm
to put
thinking too. So we can breeze over that. And we did have some pickups for guard as well. We have Connor McGovern and Edwards coming in as well. And I mean, Ryan Bates is still there. He was injured last season. I can't remember exactly what the injury was. I think it was deemed an ACL by McDermott. So now kind of shifting into offense. Even, I mean, we can go, which way do you want to go? We can go guard, we can go wide receiver 3, because both are really interesting to me.
We'll start with guard, just because today I found interesting McGovern was named, I think, at the first teamer at left guard.
Yeah.
And then right guard, Rick Bates, was put in over Osiris Torrance, their second round pick, who a lot of guys saw and thought we would take in the first round.
Yeah.
So you get away with a steal in the second round, and you're still putting in that more consistent, someone who's going to limit mistakes and limit sacks. And so I'm kind of intrigued by that. The Rick Bates play over Torrance, who was just a mauler.
Something that really stood out to me about Osiris Torrance is I actually was hoping to see him taken in the first round, but to see him, the Bills still got him in the second round. That's really an impressive job done there by Bean, and maybe a miss by some other GMs. We'll see how it works out. But he did not give up a sack in both of his collegiate teams with the Louisiana Raging Cajuns as well as the Florida Gators. I mean, how impressive is that? Yeah. That's Sun Belt football as well as SEC football. No sacks given up. We'll see how that can translate. Maybe doesn't grab that starter position right now, but I think that's something to realize. Like, that's the potential that the team's working with.
I know many among the draft community had Torrance touted as that guard 1, and we know the guard isn't as highly valued in the draft as maybe they used to be, which is why he kind of fell into that second round. But yeah, that was an absolute value pick. And while they do have Bates in there now, I kind of do expect Torrance to take over at some point, especially because he's an athletic guy for his size. He was a big guy. He actually did drop some weight coming into camp, but this guy can move. And with the way that they're kind of leaning towards getting James Cook, the speedy guy, involved, you might want to get your guards more on the move. So they might slot him in there, but we know how this Bills team works. We know they're going to start the veterans. So it's not really a big surprise for me to have Bates in there. And obviously McGovern's going to be slotted in at a left guard. That guy, he's a young player, and I think his best football is still really in front of him. So it'll be exciting to see how this young offensive line kind of grows.
Yeah, offensive line being a point of contention too. I think over the past however many years, Allen has been a part of the team, because a lot of the I think criticism for the Bills comes from, okay, Allen has to put the team on his back and run because the O-line's not good and can't leave him enough time to pass in the pocket. So I think that'll be really, really cool to see going forward. I think the Bills did a great job of how they picked up people. Now going on to wide receiver 3, right? I mean, clear number 1 is Diggs. Number 2, I think Davis, who had a little bit of a lackluster season last season. We can admit that, right?
That injury
exactly.
Really
the ankle injury really, really hurt him in that point. But now wide receiver 3, I mean, the list just goes on and on. I mean, we have Shakir, sophomore, coming into this season. Really excited. I think he left last season with a lot of Bills fans being excited about. So I think there's that. You have Trent Sherfield coming from Dolphins, right? Dolphins, yeah. So Sherfield as well. Who else am I missing?
We got Hardy.
Yeah. We're trying to see if he's going in for Nyheim Hines. Unfortunate offsite injury. But he's kind of the clear kick return, punt return guy. So who else are we looking for?
Andy Isabella is the most recent transaction out of the Cards.
Yep.
And of course, the rookie Justin Shorter.
Ooh, yeah, Justin Shorter.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Oh,
I forget
man.
about Justin Shorter. Yeah, he's been looking cool. I'm excited for all those guys. What do you think?
I think firmly we've seen throughout the first 9 or so training camp practices, we've kind of seen Trent Sherfield kind of take hold of that wide receiver 3 position.
Mhm.
We've heard Josh Allen attest to his ability a lot recently, a name that maybe many wouldn't have expected him to bring up. But those two seem to have an early rapport here, and it's not like he's some nobody. He has produced. He put up 400 yards in Miami last year. That was his best season of his career.
Nice.
But this guy gets open, and just recently as yesterday, we saw on the highlight that back corner pocket pass where Allen threaded the needle through 2 defenders and Sherfield came down with a diving catch.
Yeah.
So it is very obvious that rapport looks nice, and I would expect Sherfield to come away with that wide receiver 3 position.
I just think it's funny, and what a tight window that throw was, might I add as well. But you have of course, the play week 3 where the ball is punted from Miami's punter into Sherfield in the backside, and lo and behold, he's with us now. So, but to give it credit to him, I think that he can really take that spot there, wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I like Sherfield as a wide receiver 3. I like the speed out of Hardy. I like it out of Isabella, and I think those are more gadget guys, like bringing in to kind of fill Isaiah McKenzie's role.
Yeah,
And I think they want to add, a lot more movement along the line of scrimmage, and I think those two are more for that role. And I think Sherfield's more of a pass catcher than both of them.
yeah. I miss McKenzie. A little dirty, man. That was face of the franchise. So anyway, now to kind of wrap things up, a little bow on everything. Give me these players to look out for. Preseason game coming up Saturday versus the Colts.
Good to see Anthony Richardson
Oh yeah, that'll be really interesting too. But
versus
that's
his former
another story.
teammate Justin Shorter.
Osiris Torrance as well. You could add.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of Florida Gators.
That's
The
true.
one guy I'm going to be keeping an eye on, maybe a name that not many kind of think about, but Shane Ray, the former first-round pick,
Yeah.
2015 from the Broncos, kind of scrapped out of the NFL for a while. I think he played some Canadian football, but I've heard a lot of pretty exciting things about him deeper in that edge rotation from camp. He seems to be getting after the quarterback pretty consistently, so I'll have an eye on him because he probably will get a good majority of snaps here. So it'll be fun to watch him rush the passer.
I'm really curious about the big fella, Puna Ford, coming over from Seattle, plugging those gaps. I know they have Tim Settle listed above him. Some may have seen that going the other way, but you figure if someone's listed ahead of you, the preseason is your time to shine and show why you could maybe flip those positions on the depth chart. So I'm really excited to see what he can do. Of course, won't be trying to tackle Jonathan Taylor, of course. But for whoever he is going after, well, I'm excited to see what the big number 98 can do.
Right. Yeah.
And oh man, this might be a little bit of a hot take. I can't wait to see Justin Shorter on the
Oh
field.
yeah.
It's almost like I envision it as like a Duke Williams. Like I feel like he's gonna become a fan favorite very fast. He's 6'4", 223. He was in the class of 2018. He was the number 1 ranked receiver ahead of Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He has all the tools, and he showed up in some pretty big games for the Gators against SEC opponents. He played his best football against them. So I would like to see someone with size. I know the Bills lost Hodgins last year.
Yeah.
That one kind of hurt. They got picked off with the practice squad. Someone with size who went to kind of do some pretty good things for the Giants last year. I'd love them to be able to utilize him, especially in the red zone area.
Yeah. Me personally, would be looking forward to Josh Allen.
Right. Oh, my God.
No, man. Hey, that's great. Number 8 is insane. I love to see that. Diggs as well. Number 16. A bunch of these guys getting up on the top 100 board. But yeah, no, I mean, all great suggestions. So preseason, I think we're going to be talking about that next week. Trying to think if there's anything else that we have in store for you guys at home for next week. But
Up with the social media.
oh yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, pump our social media for sure. For now, that is all the time that we have for you today. If you like more content from us, check out our website at buffalosportsinsider.com. You can find all of our social media handles there, our YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anything you name it, we got it. This has been Justin Siejak, Hunter Lobur Cummins, and Colton Pankewicz. I'm KJ Zielezinski, bringing you everything sports, everything Buffalo. Be good to each other. Have a great week, guys. Take care.